Today we're talking health food reviews with world champion bodybuilder Sarah Taylor. According to Healthline, some health foods are really just junk food in disguise, which to me seems unfair and irresponsible of those companies involved because they're taking advantage of people who are in need of help in order to live a healthier, happier life. As someone who was once obese, I fell for the trickery. I thought I was eating healthy food, but in reality, I was probably doing more harm to my body than good. Health Explorer Neil Fellows here from Total Wellness Club. If you want to get healthy and fit and stay healthy and fit and do it in a way that's unique and natural to you, please subscribe and hit the bell to get notified of all of our latest uploads. In this video, what we're going to do is do a health food review. I want to make sure that by the time you're finished watching this video, you know more about health foods than you did before you started watching. Joining me is Sarah Taylor, who was once overweight herself before slimming down and trimming up to become a 21 times world champion bodybuilder. Sarah, we know not all health foods are healthy, but what are some of the ways that people who want to be healthier can know the difference between healthy foods and bad food?
Well, that's a very long question, really. There's actually, I mean, as you can imagine, there's a lot in that, because I'm sure we'll get onto this in a second, but not everything that you read on a label of a packet or something like that is accurate. And it is often designed to mislead you in a way and to kind of fool you into thinking that something may be a little bit healthier than it actually is. So when you're sort of looking at foods, particularly packaged foods that might sort of say low fat or gluten free, you might sort of think that that's healthier. But the way to really gauge whether something is healthy or not is really to look at the not even necessarily the nutritionist. I mean, we'll probably get to that in a second, but because all of the packaging has its nutrition on it and stuff like that. But you really want to be looking at the ingredient list, and you really want to look at probably the top 3 to 4 ingredients, and things to be watching out for in those top 3 or 4 ingredients are sugars, salts, and fats, because those are going to be the predominant ingredients in that particular food. And there's some very, very sneaky ways that companies add extra sugar in. So you might actually not be aware that there's an awful lot of sugar in something. But another thing that you can look at when looking at packets is the sheer amount of ingredients. Obviously the fewer ingredients and the easier they are to read, particularly if they're in English sounding words, then the closer the food is going to be to its natural state. And really, if somebody wants to be getting healthier, that's something that they ought to be aiming to do, is moving away from packaged foods, particularly ready-made meals. They can be an awful trap for excess calories, excess sugar, excess salt. So really move away from the ready-made meals and make your own meals. Because when you're making meals from, excuse me, real whole foods, your tomatoes and your bananas, they don't come with a nutrition label. There's no need, because there's nothing added into them. Ingredients labels really show things being added into those foods that might not necessarily be healthy, might not necessarily be good for you. So the closer your food is to its natural state, the healthier it could be for you. I mean, there are obviously some caveats, but that's definitely something that people could look for. Move away from the ready-made meals towards foods in their much more natural state. That's really probably a very key place to start.
Why do you think that some companies packages food up as healthy when it's not really? And why do they do it? How do they get away with it?
Well, they're actually allowed to. Here's the thing. Label reporting is legally allowed to be 20% inaccurate. If you think about that,
it's allowed to be 20% inaccurate.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So you could be, something might say that it's 50 calories, and if you're on a diet, you might think, oh, 50 calories is great, but it could actually be about 60 calories or 70 calories, and it's legal for them to do that. It might say that it's only got 10 grams of sugar, but it might have 12 grams of sugar.
Right.
and it's perfectly legal. So
Wow.
this is something that
Yeah.
you have to be very, very careful of. And you know the, what a lot of sort of these marketing sort of, I guess, this packaging, it's designed to attract you. So of course they're going to use words that attract you, such as like, low fat or low sugar or high fiber, for example. And they'll put those in sort of big writing on the front of it in the hope that they'll kind of distract you from what might actually be on the back of it, which might not be so good for you.
Yeah.
So these are some of the things. And another thing that they do is what you really have to be careful with the labeling, particularly when it comes to sugars. I mean, added sugars are a very sneaky source of extra calories. And what they often do is, instead of just saying sugar, because everyone knows sugar is bad for you, or, I don't like using the word bad for you, but people know that you should limit your intake of a refined added sugar. Now, sugar that appears in fruits is actually, that's totally fine, because it's actually incredibly hard to overeat naturally occurring sugars in fruits, because of course the fruit has all of the additional, it's got the additional bulk, it's got the additional fiber, it's got the additional nutrition. So it's incredibly hard to overeat sugars from fruits. So we mustn't throw the baby out with the bathwater here. What we're talking about is refined sugars, and these can come in any sort of forms. It could be anything ending with ose, O-S-E, is a sugar. It could be a nectar. It could be a syrup, for example. You could have agave syrup, for example. It sounds healthier than sugar. And these are ways that they try and trap you. Honey definitely sounds healthier than sugar. Cane sugar sounds healthier than sugar. Beet syrup. These are all terms that you might find on a label that might lead you to believe that this is a healthier food than it actually is.
It's amazing. I mean, I'm just thinking back through my own experience of being overweight and trying to lose weight. And you walk into a shop or you've seen an advert and it says healthy or low calorie or something like that, and you pick it up and you think, oh, that'll be all right, and you put it in your basket without even thinking about it. And it's only when you hear the kind of things that you're talking about here, and this is how I kind of began to understand it. You've actually got to turn the package over and read the ingredients on the back. And then you need to be able to understand what the things mean in order to be able, and it takes either, your own sort of learning and understanding, or hearing an interview like this to be able to go, right, now I understand that there are umpteen different names for sugar. There are umpteen different ways that fats could be put into my food and called a different name. I was actually amazed, actually. I think that the word natural is kind of a catch-all phrase. When you see natural flavorings or something like that, you might think, well, that actually is safe. That's going to be good for me. But actually, you find out when you start to look what natural flavoring is, or natural ingredients in food, it's not that natural at all.
That's right. Exactly. I mean, what is natural? And, what does that mean? I actually did I actually went, before we came on, I actually did a Google search for some of the sort of most searched food terms. And, it really was no surprise that healthy was on the list. Low carb was on there, sugar-free, no carb, carb-free, gluten-free, detox, low sodium, dairy-free, low cal, low fat. All of these, popped up in the most searched food terms because, people associate these just naturally with being healthier. And yes, that could be true, but it's not always the case. I mean, for example, gluten-free is a classic case. I mean, I'm a full-blown celiac, have been my whole life. Now, gluten-free products didn't used to exist when I was a kid. I had to go to the doctor to get a script, a prescription to go and get bread. You couldn't just go down to the supermarket and pick up a loaf of bread. It didn't exist. And so we've got this explosion of people who are now gluten-free. The actual incidence of full-blown celiac is actually only 1 to 2% of the population, whereas people who are identifying as gluten intolerant is up to 30% of the population. Now, you can have all your gluten-free products, but a gluten-free cake is still a cake.
And
it's still likely to be loaded with sugar. Yeah, and it could actually even be less healthy for you than a full-blown wheat cake, because to make them stick and be sort of moist and sticky, they have to use all sorts of other ingredients that you wouldn't have to use in a normal cake.
I think with gluten, what I find is when I'm talking to people about gluten, it's almost like it's gluten. There's nothing in it. It's like, well, what is it then? Fresh air. You know, there seems to be this misunderstanding about what actually gluten-free is, because
gluten is just a protein that's found in certain grains. You know, wheat, barley, and rye being the key ones. It's just a protein. That's all it is.
Yeah.
However, it's a protein that can spark, you know, an immune response.
Yeah.
Okay, and that immune response, and it also, because it's kind of it's what makes gluten's actually what makes bread sticky and stick together.
Yeah.
And in full-blown celiacs, it causes an inflammatory response of the gut lining, but it also actually sort of really gums up the gut lining's got all of these little sort of fingers called villi, like this, which means you've got a huge area for digestion. In a celiac who's undiagnosed, these villi have been kind of gummed up, and their intestines are all flat, you know, kind of smooth, so you can't digest the food. That's why you get symptoms such as, you know, extreme lethargy, bloating, that sort of stuff. But it can also cause leaky gut as well. Anyway, we've kind of got a bit off topic.
No, we have, but it's also interesting to know this as well, for people to really help them to understand the different things that we need to understand about our food and what's going into our body. And so we're talking about health food reviews. We're talking with Sarah Taylor. If you're enjoying what Sarah's saying and find it useful, please do give us a thumbs up, because it helps the channel. Sarah, what are some of the healthiest foods that we can eat? And if you had like a top 5, what would you include in that?
Okay. Well, I mean, as I alluded to before, really the healthiest foods that you can eat are those in their natural form, if possible. So, you know, fruits and vegetables, you know, unprocessed fruits and vegetables. Home cooking, you know, home cooking is, you know, there's so much sort of research showing that home cooking is vastly more healthy for you, even if it's kind of the same meal that you might buy in a packet in a supermarket. The home cooked version is probably going to be healthier, because you're more likely to use fresher ingredients, and you know exactly what's in it. So you won't use things like preservatives and additives that would be in the packet meal. So anything really in its natural state is probably going to be an advantage over something that's in a packet. But I mean, you can still overeat something. You can still have too much of a good thing. In terms of top 5, that's an incredibly difficult thing to do. You know, given what I do, and particularly with my specialization in preparing people for bodybuilding competitions, where nutrition has to be absolutely on point, I guess one of the things that I look for in foods is nutritional value. What that means is the amount of nutrients per calorie, if you see what I mean. So for example, something like spinach. You know, it's got so many nutrients and it's incredibly low calorie. That would have to be definitely on my one of my top 5. Eggs, again, although they're relatively high in calories for the size, they're so packed with all sorts of great nutrients. You know, you really can't discount eggs. What else? You know, in terms of grains, I would always go for something like quinoa. You know, calorie for calorie, quinoa and rice are the same. So you can have 50 grams of rice and 50 grams of quinoa. However, the nutritional value in the quinoa is off the charts.
Right. Okay.
Because it's got vitamins and minerals and fats in it, whereas the rice has just got carbohydrates. So this is what I look for.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And it's an interesting way of looking at food, because rather than, you know, a lot of people maybe use food as almost like an entertainment, you're looking at it from a nutrition. What's going to make me feel the best? What's going to help me perform the best?
Well, there's 2 ways that I look at food. I mean, there's this term called athlete thinking, and athlete thinking basically looks at food as fuel, just like you put petrol in your car. Food is fuel to get you from A to B, to fuel you for what you're doing. So that's one way of looking at it. And when you look at food in that perspective, yes, you sort of kind of completely take the emotions out of it, and it's like, is this food going to fuel me for what I need to do in terms of my sport or what activity?
Yeah.
I have a very high stress job, so this is, again, was why I focus so much on nutrition. I have to fuel myself so that I'm productive all day.
Yeah.
But there's nothing, I still going out, enjoy going out for a burger just because I can.
Yeah.
For no other reason than I just want a burger.
Yeah.
That's a completely emotional decision, but that's okay.
Yeah.
However, a lot of people exist in that emotional eating state constantly. And it's when you're in that emotional eating state that people tend to sort of lose control of what they're doing and overeat on foods that are less ideal. So, let's do a top 5. So we've got eggs, spinach, and quinoa. I would definitely put salmon on there.
Salmon, yeah.
Yeah, because of fats. Oh, and you can't go past an avocado. Once I did, I wish I could find it. I don't know where I've put it, but I actually did go through and create a spreadsheet of all of the vitamins and minerals in about 80 or 90 different foods.
Yeah.
And I gave each of these foods a ranking. It was when I was doing my blogging for competition, and I had a rant about how poor bodybuilding diets are. And I actually created this massive spreadsheet of 80 or 90 foods, and I went through literally 20 vitamins, minerals in each of these 90 foods and gave them a ranking.
Yeah.
And I worked out that you could cover your entire nutritional needs in just 7 foods.
Amazing.
In just those 7 foods.
7 foods, yeah, no, it's brilliant. So you've given us lots of fantastic information here today. It's quite, for somebody who is new to this, it's quite mind-blowing. So let's try and just boil this down to one thing. What challenge would you leave somebody with as a result of what you've said today?
Well, okay, here's a challenge. If there's a food that you buy at the supermarket, a ready-made meal, let's just say it's lasagna, because you can get lasagnas, okay? Make your own lasagna instead of buying a shop-bought one.
Okay, nice challenge.
Yeah.
So make it, instead of buying the processed food,
instead of buying the meal that you want to eat, cook it yourself.
Yeah. Nice one. So thank you very much, Sarah, for your time today. Always appreciate talking to you. Fascinating as ever. Each week I ask our experts to leave us with a challenge. It's just an idea. It's something that we can try. If you like it, stick with it. If it doesn't work for you, you can always throw the idea out and keep searching and find something that does work for you. I'm going to be taking this week's challenge. You can see my findings from this challenge in our challenge roundup video, which is a monthly summary covering all of the challenges our experts have shared. To get that video and all of our latest health and wellness uploads, including interviews and reviews, subscribe and hit the bell so you get notified whenever we post. And if this channel can help your friends and family, please share it with them too. If you want to get proactive with your health, Total Wellness Club are developing health quests over at questly.life. Join while we're developing the site and get access to health quests that immediately personalise your health. You'll get to identify which of 10 critical health categories need your attention. You'll be able to track your progress, and you'll be able to help us develop the platform too. I'll put a link in the description, and I'll see you in the next video.